Alright, in this episode we're going to knock out e-brake install, throttle cable install, wiring relay, we'll make a custom glove box, and we'll do the spark plug wires for the basic install. Stick around. Alright, so I'm definitely not going to get to all of this. This is all the stuff that I had that's currently came in over the last, I don't know, since the last video, month and a half, I don't know. However, I don't know if I'm going to get to all of this, but I'm going to try. I'll kind of break down roughly what I bought. It's going to be, I have 16 gauge wire, 14 gauge wire, 12 gauge wire for all the wiring I have to do. I have kits to assist with making relays and things like that. Because I'm going to have to run additional relays for water pump, the fans, possibly the ignition. I'm sure there's more. I don't know. I'll get to it. I ended up having a stainless steel fuel line that's way over there on the other side of the shop. I'm not going to grab the reel. However, I do have all the mounts for the bottom. I have grommets for the firewall. I have a water temp sensor, MSD wires. I also have ABS plastic, which is going to help with the relay kit. So I can make a box for that. I have a level so I can make sure that my rear diff is at the correct angle it needs to be. So eventually I'll get into that. I ended up buying some all-thread just pipe here, mainly because I need to raise the valve cover studs, because I also have wire loom guides, I guess you could say. I also have throttle linkage, throttle cable, O2 bungs for the exhaust. I have wire loom, a pitman arm to finish up the suspension. I got a lot. So I'm going to start trying to work on what I can and then go from there. And I think I'm going to start with MSD wiring at first. Let's go from there. One of the first things I did without having to put it on camera is I ended up plugging the distributor in. And I will say that I had help with it. I had Joey help me bump over or turn over the motor. He felt for compression. And that way, when you know you're at the top dead center on the number 1 piston, then you know that that's obviously where this needs to be plugged in. We ended up dropping it in. It's not very hard. We did prime the motor beforehand, so if you pull the distributor out, you're going to have a oil gear at the bottom. It pulls straight out as well. What we did do is annotate with a paint pen how that was marked inside, which then allowed us to put the gearing back exactly how it needed to, and that way you don't have to worry about messing up anything else for timing or anything of the sort. So we primed it, dropped that gear back in as we needed to, and then distributor literally just drops right in. It's not too hard to do, however, it's done, which is why right now I'm going to focus on ignition. So I'm going to have to cut some MSD cables, but first I need the length, so I'm going to run the wire looms, I guess the wire loom organizers, whatever the term would be that we want to use for them, along the valve cover, so that way we know distance on how far they need to go, so I can cut them to the right length.
Close my eyes, you need
So what I'm doing right now is I'm just trying to do a rough, very rough guideline of where these wires are going to run. I'm still going to wait for the tool so I can cut and crimp the ends on without having to bring them back over to the vise. So I've got to find the tool that I need to for that. But if I can get them kind of routed how I need to, I know if I need to bring more slack out of one and go from there. So the nice part is I know it goes 1, 3, 5, 7. So I know, for example, my number 1, when I bring it over, has plenty of room. However, when I go to my next wire, which will be number 3, 3's pretty close there. So I don't know if 3 is going to be able to work. I may have to just loosen this up a little bit and tighten that up. Pull just a little bit more slack out of this. Same's going to go on with 5. So 5, as I route it through here, will reach, but it's pretty close again. If I got to do it for 3, I might as well do it for 5, and then 8 obviously will reach without an issue. So it's kind of what I'm trying to do here is just kind of get it roughly laid out how I want. I'm going to knock out the other side right now. Bracket should go quick, not worried about that, but beyond that, yeah, just got to get the wires ran, and then I'll worry about getting everything else hooked up for the actual ignition. Go from there. Get pretty close to starting this. Pretty excited. Alright, so plug wires are on, still waiting on the connections on that. Get back to that once I can get the tool. Until then, I'm going to start working on the throttle throttle linkage, I guess, getting it all connected. So that way I actually get some pedal that's on the inside here. So I should have everything connected off of the blower linkage, but I got to get something to the pedal. So I know I have a couple little different linkages around here, brackets. I'm going to make something that works. I do have, what I am going to use for my throttle cable is a low-car, the low-car throttle cable. It's 24-inch, and that way I can just reach it in. I think the stock pedal, the stock cable length on this car is 21 inches. I'm hoping that this isn't going to make too much more than a 3-inch difference, but I think we should be all right. We'll figure it out. Might have to trim a little bit, no big deal, but yeah, let's see if I can get it in place. All right, now that the cable's fed through, it should be right here. I ended up disconnecting most of this to get it to feed through. It's pretty simple. A couple little Allen screws. It's pretty self-explanatory. The thing just comes apart. Keep it in order though. It's gonna save you a little hassle trying to get it all back together. So now I just gotta figure out how I wanna route this thing to try to give myself the most optimal amount of straight back pulling from here. It had been worked on before. Someone had put a little step drill on the inside. I'm glad they did, but right now it doesn't lift up. It's actually locked in place because the top is too narrow. So the only way you can do it is actually getting it all the way out by where the cable is to get it in and out. So it's kind of a pain, but I guess it will work for now. so a quick list always will help me, since I'm very visual, of remembering what I need to get done. Here's a very, very brief list of some of the immediate things. So I'm gonna start up here, create a glove box. I'm gonna try to replace it so I can adapt that into the fuses. So we'll go from there, throw it up on the wall, get to work. All right, so this is the template I have that I'm going to work off of. It's a reproduction glove box from year one. I picked it up a while ago before I knew I was going to run a relay inside the glove box. I'm going to recreate it out of 22 or 20 gauge steel, whatever I have over here. And then on top of that, I'm going to make a relay panel on the inside here where I'm going to have my fuses for my water pump, fuel pump, fan relay, things like that. So that way I have an easy way of accessing them in case there's an issue. And on top of that, they're not inside of a cardboard box, because I really don't want to take any chances putting electricity next to cardboard. Yeah. So other than that, I'm going to start trying to trace this thing out, and we'll go from there. So it fits for the most part. There's a couple little grooves I gotta cut for the glove box screws to be able to slide in. I think that's my main holdup right now. Other than that, I could probably make this work. I don't see any other major issues. It's not fully sitting flush on the inside, but that also might be because it's because of the bottom, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it's not letting it slide in. So as long as I cut those grooves out, we should be good. I'm gonna double check and remark them. Although they look like they're going to line up, because I do need to slide it over slightly like that direction. But realistically, yeah, that should work fine for what I need. Let's see here. So other than that, I'm going to do a couple little more cuts, do some drilling out that I need to for some spots for the screws to bite into, and then beyond that, just clean it up, make it look pretty, and then start on the wiring concept. So, yeah, first time I've made a glove box, didn't turn out too bad. So the box is coming along pretty well as of right now. Everything else is kind of painted on it. Touched up just where I did the step-up drill holes on it. However, the next main thing we're gonna do is place this in, do a trace from the back to where exactly it lines up with these holes. I'll pre-drill these, and that way I can make sure that when I anchor my rivets in, that this will be able to fit right where it needs to. Then I can build all my electronics off of this be able to bolt it right into place. If I need to remove this and change anything, I can actually pull it out of the car if I need to. And it's a little bit more clean than just hacking up the back of the box. So let's try to get that done. And other than that, then we're going to switch over to wiring, and we're going to make a quick, I guess a relay board, so we can get, well, everything wired up. Let's give it a shot. So installing these pop rivets, pretty simple, not too difficult. As it's been before, I've done a couple times on these. It's pretty simple. Screwed all the way to the base of the gun. Come in all the way to the back, and then just a squeeze, which will force the rivet to crush against the box, and then unscrew it out. So I'm not going to tighten them all down, however, kind of gives you an idea. So plastic's mounted to the back, rivets going to the back, works pretty well. I can remove this if I need to change out or I want to redo the fuses in the back, or I need to change out the layout. I just have to recut plastic. I don't have to actually worry about drilling different holes in the glove box itself. So other than that, I'm going to pull these off quick, and then from there, let's get to wiring. A main distribution block. Going to be over to the side like so. What I'm going to do with that, mainly because I want to try to optimize as much space as I can over here. I'm going to figure out what the best way is for spacing wise on how to get both all my other terminals, my relays, everything else laid out on this. I don't have 4 mounting bolts for this, so I do have 1. So I'm going to order more, and then I can just screw them in right into my rivets on the back side here when the new ones come in. But this will at least allow me to mount this for the time being until we can get it a little bit more, perfect. Alright, so this is kind of the layout that I ended up going with. I dropped my relays going down here, connecting down through my block over here that all of them should be able to reach, and I drop it across. Other than that, it looks not too bad. It did bend a little bit, just as a reminder. I mean, it is bendable, flexible. However, make sure that when you're doing this, you're using a thickness that's appropriate. You can buy some of this ABS plastic that's really thin. It's not a bad thing. It'll want to twist and move on you a little bit, but if you start getting too close to the edge, you're probably going to crack it. One of mine are pretty close. As you can see, there's quite a bit of kind of warpage there. But other than that, it is pretty thick, so that's why I went with kind of the thickness I did. This looks to probably be like maybe a quarter, no, not even a quarter inch, probably an 1/8 inch. So anyways, now I can plug my relays on my board and then start getting them wired. So breaking these down, this is kind of a rough overview of what I've done to make this. Looks like a bunch of wires. I got it. Stay with me. So you're gonna have your power in coming in off the main distribution block like this. Obviously you don't want on a normal switch, for example, I don't want to have to try to power my fuel pump, for example, off of turning on a switch and then powering the, I'll make this easy. So essentially what I'm doing right now is you have your battery, you have a switch, you have a fan. What you don't want to do is send that to ground, switch to fan, because all of that electrical load's gonna go through that switch. So essentially what you're doing is you're going to set this up to where all your main power is gonna go into a I guess a fuse block, some way, shape, or form. I don't know if you can see very well, but each one of these has its own fuse that you can do, so each line. So right now I have 4 relays set up on this. What's gonna happen then is I'm gonna have my main 12-volt source come in here, which will then power each of these. The power then goes to the relay. The relay, once it is activated, will switch and become active, right? So it'll have a triggering event or a trigger wire. And then from there is how you'll turn on the relay. Easiest way to explain it is power goes in, a signal comes in, trips it, then the signal wire completes it and powers out, and then you're gonna hook up your main accessory to the power out. So rather than hooking up the switch directly to the fan, I'm hooking the switch up to this relay. This relay is the one taking the load. This relay can blow if it gets too hot, rather than starting your car on fire, because the switch ends up burning up and legitimately can start on fire. So that's kind of the purpose of these. Pretty much what ends up happening is each one of these will have its own terminal on the back. There's a bunch of numbers. There's 4 terminal, there's 5 terminal, there's a whole bunch of videos out there that'll teach you how to do them. I can tell you some basic things. They'll all have a 30. 30 is going to be your battery positive, so it's going to be coming from off of your main distribution block. 85 is your ground. 86 is going to be your trigger, whatever you're doing to activate it. So for example, you can use example a switch or whatever, accessory on, if it's going to be a fuel pump. So the moment it gets 12-volt power, fuel pump turns on, things like that. And then 87 up here will be your actual powered accessory. So the nice part about this is once these are mounted, you just got to you can change these out. So these are 40 amp. Let's say I'm going to run fans that are going to run 30 amp. I just have to undo this, plug in a 30 amp, and now I have a 30 amp fuse rather than 40, so I don't have to mess with the wiring anymore. So mine's definitely not flawless. It doesn't look the prettiest, but it's better than having a rat nest of wires, which is what some people do. And now all of this will drop right into my glove box. I do have to figure out what I want to do about the ground wires, but I'll find something to do with those. But we'll see how it mounts up and we'll go from there. So now what I'm working on is brake lines and fuel lines. So right now, I'm gonna run a 3/8 inch fuel line, and I ended up getting a bunch of this for free, and it's gonna be stainless steel. The problem with stainless steel is it's very difficult to work with unless you have really, really nice tools, hydraulic benders, things like that. And I don't, because again, I'm not a professional shop, so I'm not doing this full time, and in turn, I definitely don't have the nicest equipment. I got some decent stuff that'll help me with the job, but it's definitely not what I'm gonna need to be able to really knock out stainless steel tubing. So instead, I went away from this and went with nickel copper. So essentially, it's more malleable. It's still kind of difficult to work with, not nearly as bad as stainless. And it has a little bit more longevity and resistant to rusting than just steel line. So it's kind of a nice part of both worlds. And yeah, it should work out pretty well. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get the roll of it and I'm just gonna roll it through my roller I have. It's pretty simple to use. All right, here is the roller that I have. I picked this up. There's quite a few companies that make similar ones like this. This works pretty well for what you need it for. You feed the line in, and then essentially what you do is you just work it back and forth, and then what will happen is you will push out once that's tight. I can actually roll this, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to be able to push out a lot of these dips and things like that. I can actually kind of slowly work through this, and in turn I will straighten out this piece of metal, and I'm going to rotate it all the way through. So rotating it like so is working through those kinks in those lines, and then what I'm going to do is I will slowly, as I get them closer, tighten it down a little bit, put it through more, tighten it down a little bit, put it through more, still rolling it both forward and back, and also pivoting it this way to make sure I'm getting a good flat surface all the way around it. And after a while, you'll have plenty of rolled pipe.
You sing out your frustration, just say a word. Keep on staring at the pavement, God knows who hurt. Ooh, your mind is a ghost town, echoing inside your walls, 5 feet underground now. Nothing's gonna save us.
Alright, I am taking a break. I am beating myself up trying to get this fuel line ran in the bottom of the car. And honestly, it's painful. It does help the pre-bend. Unfortunately, I can't get enough of the tubing because of how long this car is. I can't get enough tubing through how I need without it completely rebending itself and completely ruining what I'm trying to get done for the tubing itself. So in turn, I'm switching to PTFE hosing. I've already ordered it. In fact, I ordered it a few days ago because these are always hit or miss on when I'm able to be down here. And in turn, hopefully it'll get here eventually. Once I get it in, I'll do a breakdown of what PTFE hosing does based on some of the other traditional hoses, steel braided, like rubber hosing, things like that. But I'll break that down a bit later. Right now, what I'm gonna do is now switch over to brakes. So it's going to be both the brake line and also running the e-brake cable. Now, I did get a Willwood universal e-brake cable in. I'll go show you what that is. Excuse the mess. Lots of other random stuff going on here. But essentially what comes in the kit is this right here. It's pretty simple. 2 separate lines. You have to use your stock one, which goes from the car down along, which is mine sticking out right in here somewhere. There it is. So other than that, I'm just going to be assembling this, and I'll show you roughly how to do it. So here is the cable. This is the Willwood universal cable. It comes with 2 separate cables, mainly because you have both joints into one, and then a plethora of little fittings. What does it come with, and how do we put it together? So based off what I can see, there's a couple ways. Number one, the way I'm going to be doing it, the most important way obviously for me, I'm going to be using both cables because I have 2 different e-brakes. I have one on each side. Some cars I know only have one. And in turn, it's pretty self-explanatory, right? You can tell, both connect into this. The cables obviously will route back. We have a bunch of miscellaneous clamps that you can use to route it and hold it to wherever you need it to hold. And then these, which are the clamps that go onto my Willwood big brake kit for the rear. Now if you have drums or a Willwood brake kit that has the, it's a disc brake that has the inner e-brake, that's when you will use these. If, by my understanding, the other style is you're not gonna need these. However, I still won't throw them away because I don't have anything to test that theory on. So, with that being said, let's first get these onto back here, which is my big struggle right now, and I'll show you how I'm gonna do it. All right, so you gotta get this clip in here. It's gonna be a little hard. Obviously, you have a little tiny hole, and you have this big brass piece. So how do you do it? Well, you gotta unthread the entire cable. So, unthread it. There's your end. And feed it back through whenever it wants to, plain nice. May have to take the tape off. Nope, we're good to go. All right, so. And there we go. All right, so what I'm working on right now is getting the e-brake cable to going from the front to the back. However, because I put subframe connectors in, now I need to drill through the subframe connectors because how it crosses inside of these Mopars, or these B-body Mopars at least, is it comes down, it actually comes down off of it comes down right there out of the wheel well. I flip mine through. Not 100% sure if it's so I flip mine through by the wheel well. I know it's supposed to come out there because that's where the bracket goes. However, routing it through is all wherever you want to go. I ended up bringing mine through. I couldn't figure out a way to bring it inside the frame rail immediately. So I brought it down and then brought it through the subframe connector. Just kind of made with a drill, made a couple holes and then ground it down so it was more of an oval for me to be able to pass through that brake cable. So now I'm gonna hit it with some chassis black, and then from there, once it dries, I'm just gonna route it through and I should be able to finish hooking up the e-brake cable now. However, while I'm waiting for that to dry, I'm gonna start working on routing the passenger side back over, and I'm gonna bring it back through and mount it on the driver's side. So I'm gonna have to get a little creative with some of these rubber clips that they included, like so, to try to help route that over and keep it out of the way of the drive shaft and everything else in the back end. So while it's drying, I'm gonna knock that out. Alright, I had to take a break yesterday, and now I'm back at it. So, I want to double check, make sure all this is drying and everything's set how it's supposed to. I gotta figure out what I'm gonna do on that end with the cables to kind of keep them in place. I got some 4AN clamps. Should look like, let's move this. Should look like this here. Those are not, the one that's on there right now is not gonna work. It's way too big. However, it at least holds my place for what I need for the most part. And then from there, I can mark where I need to cut these, because if you remember here, I got this, which will take this all the way down here. So I'll probably cut right about here, and that will in turn give me enough sleeving to yeah, because I have that piece, I have another piece way up there somewhere. Got both the sleeves down, routed how it needs to. Now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to cut the cable so I can attach it to my mounting bracket, which will be right here. So the way you want to do this is make sure that you have 100% of the cable routed how you want, where you want. Mine's not exactly perfect, however, there's one section. Let's see if I can just modify a little bit here. So it's in this section here where this isn't exactly perfect where I want it. However, as I manipulate this, I'll probably get it something closer to like so once I get some cables to be joined together like this. Unfortunately, this is way too big and allowing it to freely move. So I'm going to have to probably get some smaller ones and I'll just crimp them in like that. And now I'm going to do my cuts as I need to. So the easiest way now, hopefully that paint is, or that chassis black is dry enough. There's a couple things you want to do. First off, make sure that it is, again, routed where you want. And think about a way in which you can add just a little bit of slack or take slack out of an area in case you need to once it comes down to you having to cut and the cable may not be exactly how you want. So, as I struggle with one bolt here, I guess. There she goes. Alright. So, as I tighten these down, because I shouldn't have to remove this again, I did also angle it slightly with the welded nut to being slightly into the car. And I did that because right where this is, it has a potential of catching on this lip here. Now I can obviously back it down further to try to avoid that. However, yeah, I want to obviously give it as much room as I can and as much option as I can. So hopefully it should stay away from that edge. So, how am I going to mark, now that this is installed, right? What's the easiest way of marking where this is? So I'm going to use a chrome paint pen. You can use anything you want. I've seen some people utilize cut off like little like shears or anything like that to annotate. Just do an outer sleeve cut. You don't obviously want to cut unless you have to onto this, because you don't want to take a chance of damaging the cable on the inside. So this will bolt on like so, going right into that nut. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this one, which is my top one, and relatively in a much better place than the other one. I'm going to cut it right there. This one, I want to have a little bit more play in it in case I need it. So I'm going to cut that one about there. Alright, then once I get them where I want, I'm going to cut the end cables down here. I'm going to double check that I have plenty of cable going past it where my cuts are here compared to it having the end. So that should work fine. I'm going to unhook him from the car and feed him back in slightly, out I should say, which will give me enough room to be able to now do the second cut so I can get the sleeve away, but I still have exposed wire for me to bolt up. Alright, now all I got left is 2 cuts. Way longer than I was hoping for. So go to the next thing. Alright guys, that's going to be it for this video. As of right now, we were able to knock out the e-brake install, the throttle cable install, the wiring relay, the custom glove box, the MSD spark plug wiring. I think that's where I'm going to end up cutting it. It's just, there's so much to show how much work is going into this to get all this stuff set up. Next video I already have in line the fuel line install, brake lines, how to bend and crimp those. Let's see here, I got the radiator. So those are 3 things for sure that's going to be the next video. Really beyond that though, you guys gotta let me know what you guys want to see, and as I continue to build this and work with this, I'm going to try to include as much as I can. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to hit like, hit subscribe, comment in the section below, and I'll do what I can to explain whatever I can figure out and how I'm going to run my setup. But until then, keep building.